Okay, before I call the meeting to order, could we have a moment's silence for Queen Elizabeth, who passed away this afternoon? I'll now call to order the virtual meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee. I will begin reading the land acknowledgement statement. On September 8th, 2022, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and rich in indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for the contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of the broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together we may care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history, nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. All participants are asked to keep microphones mute, cameras off during staff consultations, presentations. There will be an opportunity for the public and committee members to ask questions following the presentation this evening. If you've not signed in with the recording secretary, please speak now. I'm John Wanless, Chair of the Planning Committee. I will now take attendance of our committee members and staff. Please raise your hand or declare your presence when I call your name. Jacqueline Grimes.
Present.
Councillor Wendy Alford.
Present.
Bill Widmeyer.
Present.
Councillor Jay Brennan.
Present.
Senior Planner Carl Grenke.
Present.
Planner 1 Richard Grant.
Present.
Planning Clerk Mary Remick.
Present.
And we have regrets from Jack Anderson and Stephen McGuire. To review, committee members are asked to raise their hand when they wish to speak. Alternatively, please find the appropriate opportunity at any available time to notify the chair verbally if you wish to speak. Item number 2 on the agenda. Could I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Moved here.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Jacqueline. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes, Planning Advisory Committee meeting, August 11th, 2022. Could I have a motion? Moved by Wendy, seconded by Jay. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of monetary interests. We have none. Okay, priority issues. We have 3 of them. Report on PAC 22-18, report on PAC 22-19, and report on PAC 22-20. And I think Richard will do all 3 of them together.
Yeah, starting now. Well, so for the 22-18, this would be for the site plan control for block 1 to 3 and 4. And they're all going to be on Whitcomb Crescent. Now for the site plan control, they're going to be comprised of 20 townhomes along Whitcomb Crescent, and which was identified by the former name of Foreign Crescent on the exterior color reference phase 2 map, as well as the subject property is known as residential 5 with special exemption for 4, exception 4. So on the site survey and exterior color reference map, blocks 93, 94 have been relabeled 1 to 4. And each block is near identical and that vary in 3 main exterior color packages. And 4 of the 5 units will be having a shared driveway. The site and grading service map does lack details for the porch. Well, it hasn't been updated. Well, the site grading service map has been updated to have more, it has details for the deck and porch configurations, and it has been an updated summary table. And the species, name, and variety of tree shrubs are still in consideration. Moving on to PAC report number 19. So this would be for the site plan control for blocks 17, 23, and 24. And so that's going to be for Margaret Graham Terrace. Now, this block will be similar to the other blocks in the sense that there will be near identical. And 4 of the 5 units for each will be sharing, will have a shared driveway. And they will be using the same color exterior package as the similar blocks. For PAC number 19, so we're looking at blocks 6, 7, 8, 13, and 14, and they will also be along with Cone Crescents. Now, these will have a bungalow, townhomes, as well as townhomes. There's going to be 2 different things. So block 6 to 8 will contain 15 near identical bungalow townhome units, and block 13 and 14 will have 10 near identical townhome units. For the identical bungalow town unit, there will be 5 units for each block, which will have a backyard and a shared driveway. Blocks 13 and 14 will have 10 near identical town units. Each will have a backyard, and 4 of the 5 blocks will have a shared driveway. And also for the same block, they'll have the same exterior color packages, which come in 3, by the way. That's everything.
Is that everything, Richard?
That's everything.
Okay, what we need is a motion. Is there any questions regarding these? Jay,
Not a question. Thank you, Richard. And I note that both reports are quite similar, in fact, the same. And the planning staff and states in consultation with other departments are looking for more color diversity in the exterior packages. What type of colors were we thinking about? I agree with that, but
Personally, I had raised the question about the colors because I thought they're rather very similar. And I know that in speaking with Ken Shelley, he feels strongly that the colors are what people want in terms of marketing. So there really hasn't been too much pushback, just more of a slight critique on the colors. That's it.
okay, thanks. Thanks, Richard.
thanks, Jay. Wendy,
I agree with both Richard and Jay. It's a little monochromatic, and while I can appreciate Mr. Shelley's comments, these neighborhoods need to look somewhat different each block. So I do support staff's suggestion that there be some additional color. What that is, I'm not sure, but that it not be quite so monochromatic on all these blocks. I think it's not going to, that aesthetic is not really going to fit with all these other neighborhoods.
thanks, Wendy. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion from the committee that we approve these reports, the three of them.
So moved.
Bill, a seconder. Seconded by Wendy, all in favor? Carried. Okay, I'm also going to ask for a second motion here. Because these blocks are all similar, that they don't have to come back to the committee here. That staff can take care of this.
Yeah.
Jay,
I move that. I agree.
do I have a seconder?
Aye.
Seconded by Bill, all in favor?
Can I ask a question, Chair
Yeah.
Wellness?
Yep.
Would they be coming back to us under the new rules, and Carl and Mary are there, but under the new rules, would they be coming back to us?
Well, all the ones taking part, like there's quite a few of them in there. Each one of them would be coming back to us.
Okay, for comments on landscaping and that kind of thing?
Yeah, but to approve the reports, let the staff handle that. Carl?
Further to Councillor Alford, through you, Mr. Chair, further to Councillor Alford's question, the amendments to the Planning Act require or prescribe staff approval rather than council approval for site plan applications. So review by the Planning Advisory Committee is not statutory. It is sort of an optional step that we take and that the terms of reference for this committee prescribe. So typically, for the most part, most site plan applications go to the committee once, and if there's significant changes or if the file is very, very new, then it comes back a second time. I think in time it may be worth a conversation with this committee and with you, Mr. Chair, about minor site plan applications such as this, especially when we're looking at potentially a very large number of blocks for townhomes that come forward over the next number of months, as to what applications the committee even wants to see, if the committee wants to see these townhouse blocks, or for instance, with the monthly meeting schedule and the fact that these applications are all very similar, does the committee even want to see each one, with bearing in mind that may result in a delay in approval if we're waiting for PAC scheduled meetings to consider the townhouse block. So that's a conversation we can have later, keeping in mind that this review is not statutory. It is simply a good practice that we've gotten into as a committee.
Thanks, Carl. Well, my own opinion, they're so very similar that I don't think they need to come back, but it's up to the rest of the committee.
Well, I think sorry, Mr. Chair. I think the motion was passed as you asked for it. I just wanted to make sure that sometimes I wonder whether it is good to have the committee's support for what staff is recommending, and they may feel more comfortable that way. And so that's an option too. But as Carl says, we can have this conversation at a later time.
So you don't want to move that second motion then?
No, I think it passed. I think it like if I saw the
I didn't have
hands
a seconder. Jay made a
Mr.
motion.
Chair, excuse me, sorry. I do have that motion was moved by Jay and seconded by Bill.
That was the first motion.
No, sorry, the first motion was moved by Bill and seconded by Wendy. The second motion for these townhouse blocks not to have to come back to the committee was moved by Jay and seconded by Bill.
Okay, I missed Bill. Okay, sorry, Mary.
Hey.
No worries, I just wanted to clarify.
So all in favor, Carl?
But just sort of perhaps I'll let the committee adopt the motion first, and then I'll just seek clarification on direction. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
All in favor of that motion, that second motion? Carried. Okay, Carl?
So the understanding we have is that these blocks that have been presented by Richard this evening will not need to come back. We'll hammer out any of the final outstanding details. I think the question, there's going to be perhaps a couple dozen more site plan blocks in this subdivision that are all very similar. And I think the question that we can consider tonight or consider later on is, do we want to see staff reports and comments on each and every one of these site plan blocks, or does the committee wish to not proceed with that review process on these? And I'll leave that entirely up to the committee's discretion.
I think in my own personal view, if the blocks are very similar to what we've got here on the table tonight, no. But if there happens to be a block where there's significant differences to what we've been looking at just in the typical rectangular situation of each townhouse, then I would say bring that one to the committee. If there was something with some significant differences to it from what the rest are. Wendy?
Could we add to that, Mr. Chair, that I think occasionally something comes up where the staff might want the added support of planning advisory, and when they deem that necessary, that they can make the call whether to bring it back to us or not.
Okay, any other comments? Bill?
Yes. The matter has been settled. Move along, please.
Well,
Okay.
we're just trying to answer the question Carl asked us.
Yes.
Carl
so if I could
posted the
interject-
question.
Sorry, can I interject, Mr. Chair? If that
Yes.
is the direction of the committee, I would prefer to have a motion for the record as confirmed direction.
Do I have a motion on the direction then?
Can I
Jay?
make a suggestion, Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
That maybe we could defer this conversation and that motion until all of our members are here.
okay. Yeah, good point, Wendy.
Thank you.
So we'll scrap that second motion then. We can have it at a later date.
I think it would be the third motion.
Or is it the third motion?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Yes, my understanding is the second motion was passed. That means these
okay.
files do not come back, but the third motion for how to consider minor site plans or common site plans, perhaps we can have that discussion at the next meeting as more of an operational direction to facilitate and streamline the approval for applications such as this.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item number 6. Project updates. The new comprehensive zoning bylaw. 10375-2022. Richard?
This is the minor variance.
No. It's project updates on new comprehensive zoning bylaw. Or are you doing that, Carl?
I can speak to that, Mr. Chair. I can very, very pleased to advise committee here that council adopted the new comprehensive zoning bylaw on August 22nd. So we are in the 20-day appeal period right now. We do not have any. I'm not aware of any outstanding objectors, so I'm not anticipating that an appeal is likely to be filed. However, the new bylaw will come into full force and effect. I believe it's around September 20th. So I'd certainly like to appreciate and express my appreciation, and certainly council has also, when this was discussed on the 22nd, expressed their appreciation for the committee's review and discussion and the direction that have been provided on this. I think that has facilitated and smoothed the road to the approval. A couple of minor changes to the final document have were directed by council relating to some of the additional residential unit policies and the setbacks. But other than that, the document that was approved by council was the same as what was considered by the committee last month. So moving forward, we have a new zoning bylaw, and we're hopeful that that advances and improves the development framework in the town.
Thanks, Carl. All right, we'll move on to item number 7. Mary, are we ready to go to the public meeting?
Yes, John, I believe we will be ready.
Okay, I'll now open the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. Please be advised you may leave this virtual meeting at any time. Applicants, agents, members of the public logged in to participate in the public meeting are asked to please keep their microphones on mute and cameras off until called on by the interim chair, by the chairman. If you wish to speak to an application and have not signed in with the recording secretary, please speak now. The purpose of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting is to consider a minor variance application MV-22-01 for 15 Lanark Street. The application meets relief from section 9.2.2.5 of the zoning bylaw 6080-94 to allow a carport at an interior side yard setback of 0 meters where the bylaw requires a 1 meter setback. This meeting is your opportunity to provide any feedback for this application, and the Planning Advisory Committee welcomes any questions and comments you may have. We encourage you to do so at this public meeting, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public ability to voice objections later in process may be limited if a written oral comment is not submitted. The committee is the approval authority for the minor variance applications, and the committee will review and consider all feedback regarding the purpose to inform their decision on the application. I will now pass the meeting to our planner one, Richard Grant, to report on the notification of the summary application MV-22-01. Following their presentation, I will call on any public participation one at a time to offer feedback, comments, or questions regarding the proposal. The applicant, if the attendance, will also be provided an opportunity to address any concerns brought to the committee by the public. Richard.
Where?
Can you see that, everyone? Because I can't see you. I can only see the presentation. So can you see
I can
it?
see it, Richard. Yeah.
Okay. So this is for a minor variance application for 15 Lanark Street for Dennis Osipchuk. And as the chair was speaking earlier, this is for a 1-story carport that's seeking a relief for interior side yard setback. So the carport is already existing. And so for the interior side yard setback allows for a 3 meter interior side yard setback on one side with a minimum aggregate of 4 meters on both sides, except where a garage or carport is attached to the main building. Shall be 1 meter. So the subject property, 15 Lanark. And this is just the subject property survey. And right around here is where the carport is. We're trying to have a bit of context or here. And so this is just a rear view of the carports, and this are the eaves along here. And then you see a side yard view of the carport, and you can see where there is no, there's no setback here, just right along to the property line. Now, we've had 2 agency feedbacks for the carport. So Public Works has said that as long as there's a soccer pit in the backyard and the where the stars and eavesdrops discharge into the soccer pit, everything should be fine. And the building department suggests that the minimum should be at least 5 feet for the large low slope of the roof. And now we're going to go through the 4 tests of the Planning Act to see if this meets the minor variance. So test 1 is a general intent of the official plan. Now, the carport does not change the function of the property, nor does it change, but rather it enhances the use as an accessory structure. And test 2 is the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Now, the intent of the zoning bylaw is to promote reasonable property use and maintain consistency with the streetscape and privacy. And the constructed carport, through its open nature, allows access to the rear of the subject property and on the side yard. And the side yard reduction does not impede on the abutting property. And test 3 is desirable. Is it desirable and appropriate? Now, there are no known impacts for the existing carports. And as long as they meet the conditional approval set up by the 2 departments, then the carport should be functional. And test 4, minor in impact in nature. The carport location sits right along the post of the subject property line, and the concerns for drainage have already been addressed, just as long as there is a proposed soccer pit. And so the recommendation to the committee is that as long as the soccer pit is as long as the carport has a soccer pit in the backyard, as long as the subject property has a soccer pit in the backyard, and then the eavesdrops are at a minimum 5 feet to support the low slope of the roof, the carport should be moved. I can't hear,
I have a question.
yes,
I question the minor nature of it from 1 meter to 0. And the second question is, in the photographs that's applied, they're asking for they're calling it for a 0 meter side yard setback. Where's the fence and where's the carport?
so let us go back
Is the
to,
fence on the line? Because the fence in the survey, further back in the survey, is not on the line, on the neighboring property. So I don't know where the property line is. Is it between the carport that's there and the fence? That's my 2 questions.
okay, so as you can see, the dotted line here, the dotted line outlines where the existing carport is, and the thicker line is where the property line is. So
Yeah,
essentially,
The
So
solid line, the heavy line is the property line.
right. So essentially, the carport is sitting right on top of the property line for the subject property.
I see a dotted line right beside it. Right there, there's a dotted line right beside it, which to me indicates the carport. So
Right.
it can't be on the property line.
No, it's suggesting that the carport is right beside the property line. So asking for a 0 meter setback just means that there'd be no space between where the carport is and the property line.
Well, if it's beside it, it's either beside it and slightly off it. It can't be beside it and on it at the same time. with a 0 setback.
We can show the picture.
Because they're showing a dotted line in the picture, which says to me that the carport is not on the property line.
It's beside it.
It's beside it, and it's slightly off.
And your question is to say that it should be,
And in fact, they've got ties on there that says how far it is off. I could see them with arrows into it.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I'm going to pull up the survey that I have on file here, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in. If I can, I will share the screen.
Zoom in because I can see the arrows from the distances showing how far it is off the line. And that would determine the setback. If it's not on the line and the distance is there, then it's not a 0.
And I think you're a surveyor, aren't you, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, the whole thing, he's got ties to it all the way down the line. You can see them, they're arrowed in. And it's not on the line.
It's not on the line.
Move it over, Mary.
Yeah, I'm just trying to,
0.3 west, 0.2 west, 0.3 west, 0.2 west, 0.1 west. It's not on the line. So the setback is determined right there by all those distances right there that are where it's tied in.
so are you suggesting that the setback should be 0.3 instead of 0 meters?
Well, 0 is 0.1 at the back. At the very back of the carport, it's 0.1 west of the line. Then you come up to the next pillar, it's 0.2, 0.2, 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. And in fact, the board fence is encroaching. If you look up at the top part there, the board fence, center line of the board fence is 0.1 west. It's encroaching on that property line all down there. So the property line is west of that fence that you see or east of that fence that you see in the photograph.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And then the fence down at the back behind the carport, you can see it there. It's clear of the fence, it's on the property to the east. It's 0.1 east. My suggestion is that you reword the minor variance like to me, it's major, but it's instead of minor because it's going from a meter to almost nothing, but Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to follow up, yes. So the application as presented, the application asked the committee for 0 meters. So in this case, the survey indicates that it's almost 0. It's not unusual where an application comes in looking for a little bit more than what they have, just to, I guess, cover a little bit of grace or wiggle room, or for instance, the eaves trough or what have you. The recommended condition references approval of a site plan as presented, and that the site plan as presented shows that 0.1 meter setback. So an approval of the variance, if the committee approves the variance as presented, then that would be approval of what's there. It wouldn't give them permission to go any further. The question of minor, that's certainly up to the committee. The 4 tests as outlined, one of those tests is minor is this application minor in impact? So I think the key case law has shown that the key indication is it's a question of impact rather than mathematical rather than a mathematical calculation. So certainly that is the question of whether this is minor in impact. That is entirely at the committee's discretion. So if the committee feels that this is not minor in impact, then the committee cannot approve the variance. If it is minor in impact, then the committee can approve the variance if you're satisfied on the other 4 tests. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks, Carl. Bill?
Two points of interest. Number one, I went over there, walked by the property, so I saw it in actuality, not just a diagram. I saw it, and I can tell you that the way it is situated, it does not impede access to the backyard at all. And yes, it's unfortunate that somebody built this without checking the bylaw. However, the next question is, it regards the fact that this is a carport. It's not a garage. So if at some point some future owner decided that they wanted to have a garage there rather than a carport, then that would require an application to the municipality. Would it not?
Well, it would require an application depending on its size, if it's getting larger than the original footprint, and only if, let's say it's, you know, and if it's a slightly different structure, because the setbacks won't change. You still permitted a 1 meter setback for carports or garage.
Is that right? Okay.
Thanks, Richard.
Sorry,
Question-
Mr.
question
Chair,
answered.
I was going to make a further point that we make sure and maintain the fact that it stays a carport, because
Yes.
we approved one at the corner of Ryan and Jasper, which was a carport we approved. I didn't vote for it, but it's a glorified garage without a garage door. That's what it is. You can go and look at it. And we also the town sold them a piece of property to build the extra piece on to the carport that was there. But instead they built a whole new thing that's a total garage, filled in. It's not a carport.
Hmm.
A garage without a garage door on it. Wendy, you had your hand up?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Taking into consideration what you said about the survey, in terms of impact, this thing has been there, I presume this has been here for some time. So it doesn't, to me, have a negative impact on the neighbors. I'm glad to see the soaker pit, because that could potentially be draining onto a neighbor's lawn. But to me, this is I take what you say about garage, but this carport's was existing, I presume, before this person bought the house. And this is really no different. We wouldn't approve this if it were coming to us new and had not had an existing, and if it had not been built before. We wouldn't approve a new one like this, but we have very often approved minor variances for porches and other things that, you know, they're grandfathered. They've been there for so long that we're not going to force anybody to tear them down. I see this as a similar situation. I don't think this doesn't have a negative impact and on the neighbors, nor is it much of a change from what's always been there, or any change from what's been there before for some time. So
Thanks, Wendy. I have a question as to whether it was all built at once. Because if you look at the one photograph, you'll notice two different roof lines. One by the house and one on the back. So the back was added on at a later date, as far as I'm concerned.
The back of the carport.
Yeah, well, the carport, I'm assuming it's all carport, but there's two different roof lines there, which tells me that it was two different buildings. It was constructed at two different times.
Hmm.
Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say that it actually improves the property. It doesn't negatively impact anybody else. It is unfortunate that it was built without a building permit, but we have that stipulation in the recommendations that they get a building permit and the soaker pit. So I have absolutely no problem with the recommendations.
Jacqueline?
I just have a question, Mr. Chair, in regards to precedent. If this gets passed at a zero setback, what does this leave us with for future cases? Somebody just goes ahead and builds something and they say, well, they said okay on Lanark Street.
Yeah, well,
Well,
I said the same thing when Ryan Street, that's why I didn't vote for it.
well,
We precedent there where we sold the guy 3 feet of property off of street property to build an extra width on his carport. And we set a precedent there, which somebody could come back to us in the same situation. Bill?
Like I said, I went and viewed this piece of property, and I think that this is no impediment at all to the neighbors or to anyone else around there, and it has been built. And I would not suggest that this thing be torn down on account of some bylaw that said that it should be a meter away, because somebody erred, and that's the end of it. But it can be publicized that in future this must be, the rules must be followed. But in this case, I would be very, very hesitant to say to the owner of this property, you've got to knock this building down and move it back a meter from the sideline.
Wendy?
To me, Mr. Chair, it looks like what you were talking about, the two roof ones, it looks like it used to be just a carport. This is my interpretation of it. And they added some amenity space onto the carport. Because it's just green space there where the eaves, the downspout goes over and then goes down. So again, I don't think we would not approve this if it were new. But we've approved lots of things that have been there for years and years.
Wow.
And it doesn't, to me, have any negative impact on the property itself or any abutting neighbors. And I believe we haven't had any comment from abutting neighbors. I didn't see that in the report.
But like this sort of thing is not old enough to fit into a non-conforming situation. Jacqueline?
Do we know the age of this?
Yeah, that's my question, Mr. Chair. How old is it? We're making an assumption that it's been there for a long time. How old is it, and what has happened that is now triggering needing a permit? Is something else going to be happening?
so for the carport was reported as not meeting building code. So that's how they started. So the age of the carport is, in my opinion, relatively new. I can't exactly tell you how old it is, but it's not something that has been grandfathered in. And in terms of reaching a precedent, seeking a minor variance, the intent is not to create this situation where this will always happen. This is just an exception to the rule.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard.
There was an existing carport there, though, before this building permit or before this comes to planning advisory. It was there without a building permit. This one, or had there been one there before?
Well, to my knowledge, this one was there without a building permit, and then someone has called it in.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Bill?
what kind of action do you wish this group to make?
Well, I'll leave it up to the committee. I like, sure, there's no, it's existing. If it wasn't existing, I think we could make some, but the fact that it's existing, no, I think we gotta bite the bullet and accept it, really. Jay?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we accept the conditional approval of this application.
Second it.
Bill, second. All in favor? Okay.
Mr. Chair, just for those, just a comment, for those people who go ahead and build things without building permits, they run the risk of coming to this committee and having these things moved. So because we're gonna allow this one, does not gonna mean we're gonna allow it if you're doing things without building permits and proper documentation. You run the risk every time you come to this committee of having to tear down what you've done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Carl?
Just on a general sense, and in response to Jacqueline's question as well, precedent is, there's a precedent of expectations. There's an expectation if we made a decision here, a similar application comes forward in the future, we'd make a similar, or you would make a similar decision next time. But that is, I guess, a perception, but it is not planning law. So each application needs to be and must be considered on its own merits. So if the committee feels that a 0-line setback makes sense in this case and feels that this is a proposal that meets the 4 tests in this case, that does not establish an obligation for the committee to approve a 0-line setback in a different property, because the property context could be different. There could be a different flavor of the neighborhood. There could be something unique about the other property where the committee's decision is different. So while we recognize that there is a perception of precedent, the committee is this is a unique application for unique property with a unique decision, and each one is considered on its own merits.
Thanks, Carl. We're all in favor of that motion?
Yeah, we all were.
Yeah, okay, carried. Okay, thank you for attending and participating in the planning process of the application MV-22-01. Any participants that do not sign in, well, we don't have any participants there. So at this point, I'll conclude the public meeting portion of the advisory committee meeting.
Do you want a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, your microphone's turned off.
I didn't.
There, now.
Thanks, Wendy, for the motion of adjournment. Have a good
See you.
night.